Interview, Part 7. I'm thinking we can move on to some ideas to continue creating a positive feeling around your name. I think definitely the friendship, feedback, and faith trio are great ways to broaden our perspective. Do you have other ideas for our listeners?
Yes, actually, I'll give you a few more. You may want to take notes. In the past, I've mentioned to people that in pages very close to where you find me, there are words that are my cousins, but they are less harsh, less fatalistic when dealing with a situation that doesn't come out as expected. For example, flub. When a mistake is made, it is kinder, a more human tone. It can even carry a funny connotation. And flop. Perhaps flop doesn't make people freeze up with so much fear, which can help rebound, recover, move forward, take the next step. After all, getting egg on your face is not fatal.
Flop and flub. 2 more F words? I think I'll start using those. Very simple, powerful choices for my listeners. Thank you. Would you recommend using antonyms or opposites to create positive associations about you?
Well, it depends. First, I think we should clarify how to deal with what folks see as opposites. I mentioned earlier how black and white are not necessarily opposites, but people often refer to these two distinct and unique colors as if they were contraries. Think about it. Black is black and white is white. Each is a specific hue that vibrates at a unique frequency. Humans have made these opposites, but they are independently unique. The point is that the use of black and white as opposites is a lazy comparison to refer to what is absolute, as in right and wrong, implying that there are only 2 possible options. That is kind of rigid, don't you think?
I see your point. I guess thinking that way, we limit to an all or nothing way of thinking. Thinking we have only 2 options can create lots of fear and anxiety to move forward. We might be closing a lot of doors when we do that, when what we really want is to open as many doors as possible, but without fear. I noted here your point about lazy comparison. Are you saying that in the way we choose to speak, we're lazy?
Not in a negative sense. Lazy is a normal human condition, Robin, intended to help save energy. Remember that you have an ancient brain that is still catching up from the time when it wasn't so easy to ensure food for the day or that you would not be eaten by a wild animal. But that is a conversation for another time. Here's another way of putting it. Think about a centipede. What comes to mind?
A caterpillar with 100 feet.
Yes, that is the idea. But I'm quite sure that not every centipede has exactly 100 feet. I also don't think that whoever inserted the centipede word in a dictionary counted its feet. I think it's a convenient, lazy way to give a name to something. Here's the thing. The word centi means 100, which is an absolute number, but a centipede is not an absolute entity. Each one may have more or less feet. The point is, words don't necessarily match reality. They are not absolute truths. Perhaps using the idea of 100 was a shortcut to generalize a species and not have to worry about each specific caterpillar to have to name it differently. This lazy way to name things could also become a problem when a word is being spoken by the voice in your head that implies an absolute, right and wrong, one and only truth.
What incredible examples. Thank you. Sorry, I was thinking about millipedes, where milli is 1,000, and who would have sat down to count if they each have 1,000 feet? An even bigger absolute number that doesn't match the actual real caterpillar. But seriously, with your way of opening the idea to challenge the meaning we thought was absolute, I'm thinking it's also about our lazy, convenient way to think of opposites of words. For example, night and day are really not opposites if you consider each is a unique domain with independent characteristics. Humans decided to label night when the sun sets and day when it rises. But what about dusk and dawn? When exactly does dusk end for night to begin? When does dawn begin and when does it end to let the day begin? So again, no absolute, just a convenient way to refer to each and use them as opposites.
There you go, Robin. And there is an even bigger issue from your example of night and day. Remember, the sun does not rise and it doesn't set. It's the earth with humans on it that moves around the sun. The rising and setting is an illusion that you've chosen to latch onto and believe to be true. Maybe you labeled these natural occurrences for your convenience, but the words sunrise and sunset don't actually describe a truth. like many other things that you choose to believe to be true that hold you back and limit your experience. Look, another example of that is the meme about an optimist labeled as one who sees a glass half full and a pessimist as someone who sees the glass half empty. The same problem is present here with that way of limited thinking because it implies the existence of absolutes. What I mean is that unless someone is measuring the exact halfway mark on the glass based on the actual volume of the glass, then the half empty or half full are abstract concepts, not real.
Good point. And funny too, because it could mean that if the glass is less than half full, it would define a partial pessimist, and less than half empty glass, a partial optimist. Or even better, that an optimist is not always an optimist and a pessimist is not always a pessimist. By the way, is it correct to even label the empty half empty? I seem to recall from my science class that air is present on top of the liquid in the glass. We don't see it, but it's there. And thankfully so, because we need air to breathe. So the word empty doesn't represent a truth. It's also not an adequate label in that description.
Brilliant. I'm quite optimistic by now that your listeners will want to choose a word that can be useful to them and replace mine.
Emptiness is the absence of some things, not the absence of everything. Mokokoma Mokhonoana.